Play at Novabet.
Hello and a warm welcome to another edition of the Irish Angle, our show in association with Novibet. As usual, I've Emma Nagle with me and we've Johnny Ward back. Johnny, how did your week go? You became a father last Monday when we were supposed to be recording the show, so all went well. I hear we've a new name for the little lad as well. Coon, is that right?
We do indeed. King Coon, named after the Paddy Toomey trained son of Tasleet. Coon arrived last Monday, just around the time that we actually. I listened back to the podcast and I was kind of saying to the missus, like, this could, like, you're waiting along, and it's like this could be a while. So podcast is roughly half an hour. I'll get away with it, and just around half an hour before the podcast started, we were called in. So he was kind of costing me money before he was born, and then I got a text message on was it Thursday or Friday from my son saying that he'd lost his phone and could I reply to him and send him money. So he's getting advanced very quickly. So, but you know how kids are, Vinny, they'll cost you a few quid, but they are a joy.
Great stuff. So all's going well anyway, home and safe and everything else. And then we have Emma. You went to Royal Ascot during the week, which is one of our big talking points. How did your trip go, first off?
Yeah, it was brilliant. To be honest, going over, I wasn't really sure if it would be my scene. I'd probably be more one for a cold evening in Punchestown. But yeah, I have to say it was probably two of the best days I've ever had racing. Really, really enjoyable. I think just on top of the top class racing, the racing I think all week long, so many good stories and brilliant winners. But the facilities at Ascot, they're really second to none. I think I'm not. The attendance figures were huge, and I don't think I ever queued for seats, toilets, drinks. Everything was just easy. It was really, really enjoyable. A lot more relaxed than I thought it would be, and I'd highly recommend. I think I'm going booking next year already now.
Wow, that's
on that, Emma. How would you compare it to Cheltenham? And it's interesting, Vinny, because the Irish racecourse that I'm friendly with who go loved it, and as a spectacle now, I have to say I'm enjoying it nearly more than Cheltenham, just because the racing is so good and everyone who goes, Emma, it just seems to be really enjoyable experience. Whereas a lot of people who were at Cheltenham this year were like, this place has just gone dead.
Yeah, I've only been to the festival once, so kind of limited experience of that, I suppose. But you've just got, I suppose, look, it's National Hunt versus flat. I'd be more National Hunt, but I think just as an enjoyable experience, definitely I put Ascot on top of it. It's really so smooth, all the way through. The prices of the hotels isn't that bad. Drinks, I mean, look, you'd expect them to be expensive, but they weren't crazy. Everything was so easy, and just the atmosphere around the track, everyone was just having a great time. Really laid back, not as kind of stuffy as I kind of expected it to be. You'd expect maybe Cheltenham to be better in that regard, but no, I couldn't complain about it. And I went to Cheltenham once, and I wasn't booking it the next year, but I'm definitely going booking Ascot for next year now. It was really top class 2 days.
That's fantastic. Right. Well, we look at it from an Irish point of view, particularly. It was a fantastic week. 10 of the 35 winners were Irish trained. We had 21 Irish bred winners. I think there was 4 every day, except one day there was 5. It's a great result for the Irish, Johnny, isn't it?
Fantastic result, Vinny. I do feel that Irish racing at the moment is it's struggling to an extent against the powerful nature of the stallions and sort of the British owners and all of that, and the loss of the kind of Galileo influence at Aidan O'Brien's. And this was going to be a very informative week in the sense of how Aidan got on, in the sense of how our sort of 2-year-olds fared out, and in the sense of how Ireland got on in general. And when you look at Dermot Weld has some good horses this year, he didn't, he wasn't a big factor over in Royal Ascot. When you look at the Irish as a whole, it was a really, really good result. Donnacha O'Brien winning Group 1 as well, was cool to see. He's a very likeable fella, and I know he's kind of gotten a head start in his training career that others haven't, but I think he's a very promising trainer, and he's very good to deal with, and has trained that filly very well. And I suppose the highlights for me, Ger Keane and Colin Keane winning Royal Ascot was absolute magic. That's the sort of stuff that really should be happening at Cheltenham if it does anymore. And for it to happen at Royal Ascot for a horse that wasn't all that expensively bought by any means. And I was, we had our baby on Monday, and I was trying to imagine what the feeling would have been like for Ger Keane to see his son ride a winner that he trained at Royal Ascot in the manner that he did, beating a sort of a well-fancied horse from a powerful yard. But as well as that, Vinny, you know, the Kyprios Gus Rodin victories for me were special to see, in the sense of, you want sort of, I'm a conservative in some respects. I want things to stay the same. I want these trainers to have good horses coming back and I want these older trainers to have winners. And I know Aidan O'Brien he's not old, but to have him still at the top of the tree, and to see like him winning the staying race that we all absolutely love with Kyprios, and Auguste Rodin coming back and having back-to-back big runs, and I think he might be kind of proving himself as a top of the ground horse. I thought it was a fantastic week from start to finish. Willie Mullins having a winner, you know, and the one thing as well that I really was referencing in my head in regard to where Cheltenham has gone, and some other race meetings, like the truly international element of the racing, Vinny, where you've like proper contenders from the States, Australia, France, as well as obviously Ireland, for me makes it something that we'd love to see. Like, you'd love to see more of that at Curry, you'd love to see more of that at Cheltenham, and that's for me why Royal Ascot is so special.
Yeah, it definitely is special, isn't it? It's on a different level at this stage, it appears to be, and I'd be a major National Hunt fan, but you have to see Royal Ascot is definitely different, and it's very, very good. Just, Emma, what was the one performance of the week that really took you by surprise, you thought was amazing? Aidan had some week anyway with his 400 Group 1 victories, and some of his were, as Johnny has mentioned, two of them, but Bedtime Story, for me, I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah, that was probably the one that springs to mind when you kind of say, like, surprised, kind of takes your breath away. She was just brilliant. Like, the way she went away from the field. Like, I think they started slowly with their 2-year-olds. But Fairy Godmother, I thought that was a massive performance in the Albany. Ryan was kind of saying she got him out of a hole. She looked like, you know, she got boxed in when the horses came across her, but he pulled her out wide and she started going. I didn't think that would be topped, but then Bedtime Story, like, looking back on that, was it Leopardstown Maiden, herself and Giselle. I think Giselle was the more fancied one that day, so I'm looking forward to seeing where Giselle will go next as well. But yeah, Bedtime Story, I suppose, look, by Mecca's Angel, by Frankel out of Mecca's Angel. It was kind of reminiscent of that Frankel Queen Anne performance in Ascot. It was kind of one of the ones that will kind of stick in your mind for a long time. And yeah, I think is she 5-1 now for the Guineas early next year, but it looks well justified. Like, she looks a bit freakish.
Yeah, the only other Irish trainer that had a winner that we haven't mentioned yet is Joseph. He won the bumper on the last day, where there was a 1-2-3 for the Irish. He'd first and third. Dylan Brown McMonigal having his first winner at Royal Ascot as well. Johnny, nice for him. He's a good kid going places, isn't he?
Yeah, you know, I suppose just to go on about a couple of the horses as well, that performance from Fairy Godmother was extraordinary. And I do wonder how good she will be. But as you say, Dylan Brown, like, I was kind of making a bit of a deal of the title race in Ireland there a few weeks ago and I was talking to Colin Keane about it, and he's like, yeah, big challenge on this year, Billy Lee, you know, and I was kind of talking up Dylan Brown's chances as well. And since then, actually, he hadn't had that many winners, because I think there's a consensus when you talk to people on the flat. I wouldn't consider myself a great judge of jockeys, but when you talk to flat riders, they sort of think this lad's a bit special, brilliant temperament as well. Yeah, like, it was just a perfect end to the week. Uxmal beating Run for Oscar and Dawn Rising, like horses that we know very well from the Irish scene. And I do feel Dylan Brown is on the way to the top, and it was nice that he got off the mark in Royal Ascot as well. And it was just a week of highlights. The performance of Bedtime Story, I'm not sure is the Cheshire race that would necessarily produce stars year in, year out. So I'd sort of I just have my hold back a little bit on that. But I did reference the maiden that she was running at the time, because we referenced Giselle there. Giselle is a Frankel out of Newspaper of Record, and she was second to Bedtime Story and the pedigree that she has. And like, these are the maidens that you're rocking up in Ireland week in, week out. And Bedtime Story was 5-1 that day. So like, it's just mad. It's mad the quality of these maidens in Ireland. But yeah, I suppose I'm rambling a bit there. But yeah, Dylan Brown getting a winner was great to see. And I do feel, you see as well, Aidan O'Brien is using him quite a lot. You do feel that he's going right the way to the top.
I've never seen nothing like the number of jockeys Aidan O'Brien has used in the last week in Ireland. My God, I just wonder I didn't get a call up myself there one of the days. The only one he hasn't used, of course, is Shamey Heffernan. But everyone else seems to be getting a turn, which is good to see. Anyway, back to Ascot again. The big thing here for me is the attendance. The attendance over the 5 days, 273,526 people turned up. And the smallest attendance was Wednesday with 40. There was 44 Tuesday, 62 on Thursday, 58 Friday, and just almost 70,000 people turned up on the Saturday. These are colossal numbers, Emma, aren't they? And nothing to do with the cost of living crisis. Where's that gone? Doesn't affect these people, does it?
I suppose it's just such a kind of occasion. Like I was listening to a few people getting interviewed on ITV, I think, and they said they've been planning their outfits and planning their trips for 6 months to a year in advance. But we were trying to kind of dissect a few weeks ago, I suppose, the Derby crowd, and maybe we were putting a bit of blame on the cost of living and the price of tickets. But it's not a cheap day out in Ascot now. Like I was referencing, the hotels and stuff actually weren't as bad as you'd expect for a marquee meeting like that compared to Cheltenham. It's actually quite reasonable. But I was walking up, and I think the Windsor enclosure is the one down the very bottom. You don't even get to see the parade ring. You're kind of just down in a bit of a field, I suppose, to put it in words. But that was £50 to get in there, and the prices got up the further you got to the parade ring. So I suppose when the event is good enough, people will pay, and I think Ascot kind of proves that. But it's just such an enjoyable day out. You can kind of see why people will keep going back next year. I'm kind of drawn into it now. To be honest, I really had no interest in going to Royal Ascot, but there was just a group of people going, and now I'm kind of hooked on it as well. I can imagine myself going again and again, and I'd say that's probably how people get into it. And meeting people at the races, people come from all over the world to go to Ascot. It's just the show they put on is kind of second to none. It's the international element, the style, the top class horse racing. It's kind of a week that can't really be matched. I'm kind of very converted from Cheltenham to Royal Ascot now. I didn't think I'd be saying that.
The other thing as well, Emma, though, is just the quality of the racing. It's every single race. It doesn't miss a beat. Every race for me is really compelling, and that's just not the case at Cheltenham anymore.
Yeah, but even that, a lot of people there aren't actually going for the racing. You'd have to imagine there are people, you probably say nearly would half the crowd be there for the day out, and it's probably the same in most big race meetings as well. And that's probably why a lot of the big tracks are lacking audience, because you're getting the hardcore racegoers, I suppose, are always going to go to these big meetings, but it's the casual fans. Probably they go to a big meeting and they're not being treated very well when they get to the track. The facilities are poor. Everything is hard to do. You can't get a drink. You can't sit down. Whereas at Ascot, that's not a problem. That's probably why they keep getting those casual fans back again and again. Even though it is probably expensive, it's worth the day out. Like you meant, the top track, the racing is absolutely second to none. But which is what's going to get the likes of me and you to go to see these top class horses. But it's kind of the other side of it as well. And Ascot seems to be able to do everything just right. So it's second to none, I'd say.
Yeah, well, the others will have to learn a thing or two from them. We've already got every track in Ireland has its own ladies' day, but they don't hit that same note, I don't think, with people getting their outfits 6 months in a year in advance, not generally anyway. But moving on, a couple of other things. We're going to switch away from Ascot now. We've plenty of other things to talk about. One of them is, Johnny, I see a thing this morning, BBC Radio 4. They've done racing tips every day for years, and now they're about to stop it. What's that about, Johnny? Is it the fact that their tips are rubbish, or is there something else behind it? Is it more to do with gambling? They don't want to be associated with that. Or is it something to do with racing's profile not being high enough anymore from their perspective, at least?
Yeah, I saw this was on the Racing Post website this morning about an hour before, maybe an hour ago or so. And, so I didn't even know much about this service, but I was reading about it, and I don't know how good the tips are, but this for me is classic BBC, which the BBC is an absolute disgrace for me now in terms of how it treats racing. And this was apparent to me pre-COVID, 6-7 years ago. I was in it was the Tuesday of Cheltenham, so the first day of Cheltenham, and I was getting ready to go all buzzing, and the BBC news came on, and the Cheltenham narrative was that Cheltenham were trying to cut down on equine fatalities. So that'd be so it's like our biggest showpiece event, and you're focusing on something that really is very, very peripheral in the overall scheme of things, and not the racing, nothing to do with the race. Was like trying to cut down on equine fatalities. It has this massive anti-racing agenda. It hasn't shown racing live for years, which is an utter disgrace considering how big the sport is in Britain, particularly on big days. And this is, to me, just a further nail in the coffin on the sport that utterly undeserving of this. And John Gosling has spoken about he can't get his head around why the BBC treats racing like this. I think it's a disgrace from the BBC, to be quite honest. And we should be glad that RT hasn't taken that view in Ireland, and still shows plenty of racing, as does TG Carr as well, because I think the Beeb is actually a joke when it comes to racing. It's just gotten its head wrapped up in all sorts of stuff that, while it's relevant, it's just not really that important, and missing the whole point of it, that it's a brilliant sport with brilliant sportsmen and women, remember, like massive involvement of women in the sport compared to other sports, and I think this is a joke, to be honest.
Yeah, fair enough. We don't know what their tips were. They could have been terrible for all we know. Anyway, we shall move on to the next thing. The Public Accounts Committee had a session last week where they had the Department of Agriculture in. They had the IHRB and HRI, both of those bodies were in discussing their 2022 accounts, which we'll talk about in a minute. But the first thing, there's so much to take into this. It was a 3-hour session, so there's a million things. I've written about it in my blog if anyone wants to look at some of the details, some of the financial details or other details in it. But just two things I'm going to pick out. First one is, according to the Department of Agriculture, in 2013, there were 4 slaughterhouses in Ireland killing 24,000 horses a year. Back in 2023, 10 years later, there's only 1 slaughterhouse, which is the one that was in Straffan, which is being suspended at the moment, and killing less than 2,000 horses a year. So what's happened to the other 22,000 horses, Emma?
Yeah, I was kind of shocked by those figures, to be honest. I suppose kind of the first question you'd have is, why would those slaughterhouses close down? Was it, similar to Straffan? Was there malpractice going on inside there? Or is it just lack of demand for the use of abattoirs in Ireland? But like you said, to go from 24,000 to 2,000 in the space of 10 years or so, it's kind of baffling. Where have the horses gone? I know, look, in the last 10, 15 years, there's kind of more of an effort to maybe rehome horses after racing. And that'll account for a number of them, you'd imagine. But it's hard to believe there's 22,000 extra horses. Now, they're all not going to be race horses again. Are they being exported abroad? Just to go to abattoirs there? Is there other pathways for them? It's plenty of questions come out of it, and you'd like to know why the abattoirs were closed, and where is this shortfall? The 22,000 horses. You'd hope that maybe the rehoming aspect of it contributed to an amount of that figure, but to imagine that it would be the majority is kind of naive. And Are they being exported abroad? Does that make economic sense to send them to abattoirs in the UK or in Europe? I don't know. It was kind of baffling, really, to read the figures.
Yeah, the other thing is, of course, we now currently have no open abattoir in Ireland. So what's going to happen? The 2,000 odd that were being slaughtered there in the past year or so, there's going to be none of them slaughtered in Ireland for the foreseeable future, at least while there's guard investigations and everything on the place in Straffan. What do you make of this, Johnny? It's a mess as well, isn't it?
Yeah, I to be honest, I was disappointed with missing the show last week, because I really did want to speak about this, and I mean I've spoken about it elsewhere, but I was utterly appalled by it, Vinny. And there's a problem as well in the sense that journalism in racing has gotten so bad now that you don't really trust racing in terms of journalism and in terms of the sport itself to really look into this and come up with answers and find out more. And I include myself in that. I was on Racing TV in Mallow 2 or 3 days afterwards, and I really wasn't sure whether or not to cover it with people. And in the end, I didn't. I asked one person, did he want to talk about it? We had a debate about it, and he said he wouldn't on that occasion. And then I sort of said, I don't know how people are going to respond to me here, because racing does have kind of questions to answer in relation to this. Like, for example, is a horse who's simply no good? He doesn't have any issues. He's just not any good, and the owners are not willing to pay for him anymore. Is it okay to send him to slaughter? And these are questions we need to answer. And what happened in Straffan was absolutely despicable. And the Department of Agriculture has so many questions to answer in terms of how this was allowed to happen. And as you say, Vinny, the figures are quite staggering. So where are all these horses going? And as owners now, we have to ask ourselves, are we happy to take on ownership of a horse if we can't account for what happens to it after we're not paying the bills anymore? Because I've rarely been as moved as the documentary as that. I felt sick to my stomach, and I really, really hope that there are criminal kind of repercussions for what happened, because there was massive abuse against animals here, as well as obvious criminality that was referenced in it. And as a sport in racing, and as a media in racing, we need to keep on this, and I include myself in that, because it's far more important than who won the 220 at Navan.
Yeah, well, the other thing with all of this is everyone seems to be passing the buck here. It's nobody's fault, but somebody else's fault all the time. So what basically happens is you've got the IHRB are saying, oh, it's nothing to do with us. We only look after a horse when it comes into training, from the day it enters training till the day it leaves training. That's our responsibility for its care and welfare. Beyond that, nothing to do with us. You have the Department of Agriculture saying it's nothing to do with us, really. This is all in legislation. It's to do with the owner. So if you own a horse, a racehorse, and you sell it to someone else, it's not your problem now, and either it's off to the next owner, and it just keeps going on and on. That nobody really wants to take full responsibility for this. And I think, as myself and Emma discussed last week, I think horse racing, particularly regarding thoroughbreds, obviously has to take full responsibility of this from cradle to grave. Here we have to be ensure people who are getting into the sport, going to be like yourselves, coming in here as owners or in syndicates and everything else, to say, look, this is a fantastic sport. We know that some horses do die while they're racing or whatever, but outside of that, we're going to make sure the rest of them have the best possible life they can, and we'll make sure that their end of life care is second to none, is what I think it should be.
Do you know what I was thinking, Vinny?
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. Do you know what I was thinking? I was when I was watching that documentary, particularly the last 15 minutes, and if you haven't watched it, watch the last 15 minutes. I was thinking a horse that I owned probably ended up here and could well have ended up in the situation where that horse was on the floor basically dying and left there like scum, or was the horse that was hit with sticks and all of that. And we as racing, we need to ask, are we okay with this? Because it is going on, and it is going on in my name.
Yeah, ultimately that's it, isn't it? It is in the name of racing, even if it's not in racing. You know, people within racing absolutely care about the thoroughbreds, but you must care about them all through their life, not just for the 2 years they're running up and down at Roscommon and Limerick and wherever else. Anyway, move on to the next one. We have another one. We have so much to get through here. The IHRB, they were in at this Public Accounts Committee hearing as well. And they finally told us what their matter of grave concern from 12 months ago was. If you remember, this time last year, their CEO, Darragh O'Loughlin, arrived into a Public Accounts Committee hearing where he was supposed to go through their 2022 accounts, but he said he couldn't. He had to stop everything because of the fact that there was this matter of grave concern, which he couldn't tell us anything about. We now find out what it is. There was an amount of 350,000 was transferred from the Jockeys Emergency Fund, which is a charity that looks after two jockeys who've had catastrophic injuries. So 350,000 was taken out of that account, which the IHRB administer. They have run a management service on it, and they put it into their own account. And then 4 months later, they switch it back to the other. And that seems very unusual behavior here, Johnny.
Yeah, I mean, it's I suppose both of us, Vinny, had tried to do a bit of digging on what was going on here. It's a long time in the public arena now that something was going on, and to be fair, there weren't any leaks coming from the IHRB, and it at least closed ranks as the investigation went on, and sort of then the rumor went out in recent months that it was effectively this. And let's be honest, there are shades of the FAI here, like switching money from one place to another temporarily, and then giving it back because of some sort of an issue. Massive questions to answer, to be honest. I've been away the last week, obviously, with the baby and all that. I don't really know what's going on, and I will do a bit of digging, but it's not good. It's very, very tough for Darragh O'Loughlin to have to answer to this. It's really something that wouldn't have had anything, obviously, to do with him at all, and he has to kind of steady the ship. It's an organisation that probably lacks resources with all the racing that's on at times, and is often being kind of kicked while on the ground. But this is not a good look at all. And as I say, when you've these questions to answer, and you've the acting chief financial officer on leave because of this, it's not a good look at all.
Yeah, the first thing to note here is Darragh O'Loughlin. He joined that organisation in June 2022. The previous CEO or permanent CEO, Dennis Egan, had left it in September 2021. Then they had an interim CEO waiting to appoint the new person. So Darragh O'Loughlin came in June 2022. These unusual activities on the accounts happened in January and April of the year he started. So he didn't start for a couple of months after that. But yeah, interesting stuff. I'm not quite sure what it's all about, to be honest with you. But the only thing I do know here is just reading between the lines that you had. The chief financial officer was on voluntary leave, we were told a year ago. He's still on voluntary leave. We now find out that he's been paid his full salary, which looks to be about 120k a year he's on. So he's getting paid that. But for him to say, he was one of the signatories on this money, which is why he's on voluntary leave. But under their rules at the time, back in 2022, there had to be two signatures for that money to transfer from the charity to the IHRB account. There had to be a second signature. We don't know who that is. It's obviously not a current employee because they would also be on voluntary leave, one would imagine, so they're not still working away. So we'll get to it in the end, but it's going to take another few weeks, if not months, because the Mazars report into this, the audit into all of the IHRB's financial activities going right back to the start in January 2018, hasn't been finalised yet. So we won't get the full version for another few weeks, if not months. Anyway, we'll move on. We've got Derby weekend coming, Emma. Are you going?
I'm going Derby Day, the Sunday. Not sure how it's going to line up in comparison to Royal Ascot, but in fairness, I've seen the Curragh, they're doing pretty good marketing building up to it. I saw Lisa Hogan from Clarkson's Farm was going to be the judge of the best dressed lady, so I'm hoping Jeremy might be there as well. I think he's a bit of a fan of horse racing, but yeah, look, the Derby looks like it's probably a match-up ambiente for any in Los Angeles, kind of the second and third from the Epsom Derby. The Pretty Pie looks a pretty good race as well, so hopefully it'll be a nice weekend. The weather's looking good, so hopefully nice crowds there for the Curragh. Last year I think it was around 10,000 I was there, but it was a miserable day. But yeah, and I'm looking forward to now. It should be a good day. I like racing at the Curragh, even though it can be a bit flat at times. But they seem to be putting a lot of work into marketing this year, so hopefully they'll get reward for it.
And are you rehashing one of your Ascot outfits, or is it a whole new ensemble?
I haven't thought that far ahead now. I wouldn't be like the girl from ITV saying she's planning a year in advance, probably more a day in advance for me now.
The other thing about the weekend, of course, is that Taylor Swift won't be there anyway. There was talk about her going off to Ascot one of the days, but she didn't turn up. But she definitely won't be at the Curragh because she performs in Dublin 3 days in a row, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, the 3 days of the Curragh. She's there up in Dublin because I know I've got daughters going to it and they can't wait for it. Johnny, what about yourself? Will you be at the Curragh this weekend?
I'm going to Taylor Swift actually, so I'll be all Taylor Swifted out. So I'm not going to the Curragh. No, I hope to get to the Curragh, Vinny. Have to ask, is it acceptable to kind of leave the house now after a week later? But no. I'm like him. I love the Curragh, and it's not the worst derby. You know, I never really expected City of Troy. If it's the second and third there, the Railway Stakes is going to be a very good race as well. And yeah, like I hope the weather. I think the weather forecast looks okay at the moment. We've had a good spell. And yeah, the Curragh really needs to start attracting bunches of people to these race meetings, and like a lot of corporate people get crowds going who really will. Like if you get a good crowd at the Curragh and a bit of atmosphere, the weather is nice. I guarantee people will enjoy it if they've no interest in racing or not. And yeah, I'm looking forward to it, and hopefully I'll be there.
Yeah, the other thing is they might get a crowd too. They've been doing a lot of promotion around the area in Kildare as well. There's signage everywhere. There's all sorts of things happening in Kildare town this week as well, where they have a Derby festival all week. And then on top of that, there's flyers have gone into every house, telling you all about what's on the Curragh and how to book tickets and the prices online and everything else. So you'd never know. They could get a bit of a crowd this year. It'd be nice to see. It'd be nice to see it packed out on Sunday alone anyway, whatever about the Friday and the Saturday. Of course, Friday's always a good evening for the locals as well, with a bit of music after racing. Anyway, give me a horse to follow, either from last week or one you think might win this weekend. Get someone a few quid. Emma, have you got one for us?
Or sure, I suppose you could pick loads from Ascot. I suppose the two fillies from Ballydoyle are standouts. But I look forward to next weekend. I think in the Pretty Polly, Paddy Toomey filly looks a bit overpriced. That Purple Lily stepping back up to 10 furlongs after a good run in the Guineas, and her run at Navan, behind Azalea looks pretty good now over that trip. She's 14-1 for that race. I was surprised looking at that now this morning. Obviously Blue Stocking, good filly from the UK is coming over as well, but yeah, I think she could run a big race there now. Paddy Toomey has won it in the past as well, so obviously one he likes to target.
Very good, Johnny. What about yourself?
Yeah, it's not that original, but the performance of Fairy Godmother for me was extraordinary. Like I was humming and hawing when I backed the horse, because I thought the run at Naas was just really, really good, and I love a horse who travels in a race, and she tanked through the race at Naas, and she only won a neck, but she kind of is slightly like Royal Ascot, where she got into a position where she all of a sudden had to just show a turn of foot to sort of slightly get Ryan Moore out of trouble. I think Ryan Moore has a lot of confidence in this horse. He rode her the first day at Naas when she was beaten, but I think he rides with a lot of confidence. She's a very interesting pedigree as well. She's Knight of Thunder out of a Sayuni mare, so she's far from your sort of conventional Ballydoyle pedigree. And I'd say Coolmore are absolutely thrilled to have this now, that they can basically mate her with whoever they want. You know, and that turn of foot from the position she was in, you know, Ryan said she'd no right to win. She won by 3 parts of a length. She actually won snug. And she reminds me a little bit of Airwave, just the way that turn of foot she has. And, you know, if she steps up and trip as well, she's just going to be top class, I think.
Great stuff. All right, I'll give you one too. Just if you like seeing Bedtime Story in Ascot, you'll like seeing Giselle this weekend. Presuming as Giselle goes for the early stud stakes, which is a Group 2. Giselle is still a maiden. Started favourite for the race that Bedtime Story won in Leopardstown. Was beaten 1.25 lengths by Bedtime Story. It was a little unlucky in running, as I mentioned last week. And I think Giselle will win. I don't care what's up against it. I think Giselle is probably very, very good. Another Frankel filly. The other thing to note in that race in Leopardstown is the 4th horse, Transcending, went and hacked up in Leopardstown last week as well, 5.5 lengths. So I think the form is very solid. The third has been beaten since, but I think that's a perpetual loser somehow. It might take a long time to win a maiden with the third one, even though it has ability. But I think Giselle will be one for me. If it turns up at the weekend, don't oppose Giselle. Right, listen, thanks for watching. Thanks for all your contributions, guys. And we'll be back next week and we'll talk all about the fantastic things that happened at the Curragh over the weekend. Do gamble responsibly and make sure to subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.